It is the 28th of March 2020, and this is going to be the coronavirus update. And I know I said I would do a different video today, something that was maybe on a subject that wasn't the coronavirus, and I wouldn't do any calculations for a bit, but I started doing some calculations, and it turns out they're kind of important. So I'm going to go through those with you today, and it starts with the very grim predictability of a lot of this. That, yesterday I made the prediction when there were only 84,000 cases in America that America was on track to have 104,000 cases today, and today America has 104,000 cases, and sadly 400 people lost their lives due to the coronavirus yesterday. So, in order to do this analysis, what I want to do is make a prediction of where America is going to be in approximately 2 weeks' time. And we're going to benchmark this against various other sets of data and see what we can do. This is the Johns Hopkins data again. It's exactly the same data as yesterday. All the data starts with time zero when there are about 500 cases in the country. So obviously these are in thousands, 500,000 cases in the country. And I've got data for America, China, South Korea, UK, and Italy. So at the moment, here I've got America and China. And I still don't really understand why people don't like the China data. It's remarkably unremarkable data. And China is, again, they're talking about reopening schools, which is not something you do if you close down a province of 50 million people, put it in quarantine for 2 weeks, for a month. You don't open it unless you're pretty certain you're on top of stuff. Anyway, so what we're going to do in the first instance is we're going to see what the various growth rates for these various countries are on a day-by-day basis. So in America, on day 2 or 1 of the virus, there were about 1,000 cases, and the previous day there was about 580. So that means there's a growth of about 1.6, and we're going to do that calculation for all of the data that we have here, okay? So this is going to be the growth factor. So it's growing about 30 odd % per day in America. And let's see if we can we've got some charts already plotted up here. So this is the growth factor for America, and that's Italy. We want it for China. So this is the growth rate for China in purple. And as you see, it gets down to 0, and it takes 3-ish weeks to do it. And for those who just don't believe that, if you take a look at the South Korea data, the spread rate, again, they all start off at about 1.3, and South Korea does even better at getting this down to 0 as quick as possible. So let's keep moving that over. Let's take a look at the UK. And the UK, there's no real signs of the spread rate going down. You got to be a bit careful with some of this data, in that some of the issues here are, as you go further in, you get better detection and so forth. So all of this data has some question marks over it. None of it is gospel. But let's take a look at Italy, because Italy is a fairly decent case study. And with Italy, you see again the viral spread rate, they all start off at about 1.3. And Italy, over the period, they put in their really draconian measures on about day 16. And actually across Europe, they're getting really pretty harsh about some of this stuff. Like in Spain, if you're outside and you don't have a reason to be outside, you're talking thousands of dollars of fines and potential jail terms. I mean, obviously you can't actually enforce a lot of this stuff. It's got to be done by consent, but you can't put a significant fraction of your population in jail. Is where I'm going with that. But yeah, they're really clamping down on this all across Europe, and Italy did that on about day 16, and they're sort of slowly getting this thing under control, and that's what under control looks like. And Italy is at the moment they're just at about 1,000 deaths per day in Italy, and so looked at like this, the China data is, I'm going to turn the American data into the China data. Boom. The China data is not terribly remarkable, but this is the one that we're really interested in. This is America. We're going to make the prediction of what's going to happen in America in the next 2 weeks. And for that, we've got to make a prediction of what the spread rate is going to be for the next 2 weeks. So to do that, we're going to have a spread rate here. And the spread rate is going to be whatever it was on the day before. And we're just going to linearly reduce this somehow. We're going to minus this number here every single day. So if that number is 0, obviously there is no change in the spread rate. Spread rate looks fine. And we can alter this now such that, did I get that right? No, I'm on the wrong one. So we can reduce it. We can explore some various scenarios for getting it under control. So if it's comparable to Italy, you're looking at this sort of reduction. And that sort of that sort of reduction gradient there is it's about right for Italy. UK, of course, has no real reduction yet. South Korea did better, but the US is being nowhere near as stringent as either South Korea, China, or Italy. So realistically, this is probably about the best case scenario. So we're now going to see what effects that's going to have on the number of cases in America. So what we've now got to do is the number of cases tomorrow will be the number of cases yesterday multiplied by this number here. And that's going to be all the way down for the next 2 weeks. We're going to be missing a few points. 3 points. There we go. Right. So in this realistic scenario here, where our spread rate reduces comparably to Italy, the number of cases will look something like that. You'll be up in about 2 weeks to about 1 million cases. So at the moment, America is about 100,000 cases. It's going to go up by a factor of 10 if there are signs that the virus is under control. If there is no control on the virus whatsoever, right, that it just keeps on spreading at the same rate, you're looking at about 2 million cases in 2 weeks' time. And if you go for the best case scenario, which is about something like that, boom, you basically get you cap it in 2 weeks' time. You the best you can really do is about 500,000 infected. Now, let's dial this back. Actually, no. Let's take these as the best case scenario. So I'm going to take a ratio of 2 numbers here. This is the number more infected there are in 2 weeks versus we need to move this over a little so you can see what's happening. Good. There we go. This is how many more people are infected in 2 weeks' time compared to how many infected now. And this was the number of people who died, now. And so you make an estimate of the daily death toll in 2 weeks' time, and it's going to be about 2,000 people a day, that sort of thing. That's the best case scenario. And worst case scenario is 0. Where is my... There we go. Worst case scenario is you're looking at about 8,000 people dying per day. So those are your brackets. Yeah. So there's a range of about a factor of 4 on that. And like I was saying yesterday, D-Day was one of the bloodiest battles in World War II, and that cost about 4,000 lives, which is also comparable to 9/11. So in about 2 weeks' time, you're probably looking at 9/11 type death tolls every single day. Yeah, that's just what the numbers are. And I did another calculation for the leading cause of death in America at the moment. It's heart disease, and it's 650,000 per year. So in terms of per day, it's about 360. It's about 1,800 people per day. So even in the sort of optimistic scenario where there is a steep decline in the infection rate in America, it's going to, in about 2 weeks' time, the coronavirus will be the leading cause of death in America. So, yeah, that's one rather disturbing prediction. Yeah, and this really is. This is probably the best case scenario where you get on top of it in 2 weeks. And Trump, by the way, is talking about opening the country soon. Yeah, they were having the meeting next Monday, I think, to decide on whether they reopen the country or not, and it's delusional. Anyway, there's another way that we can actually get an estimate on the number of people who are actually infected at the moment, and that's, we know roughly what the spread rate is, and we know it takes about 2 weeks for someone to go from being infected to dying from this. So if you have one person infected on day one, so that means that if 1% who have the virus actually die, then that means that we had 400 die today alone, which means that there's about 100 times that number is the actual number of cases that you actually have, which, okay, they're sort of fairly comparable. But the thing that you've also got to take in mind is there's a 2-week cook-up to someone dying. So if someone is infected on day one, this is the person who's going to die. We want to know how many people they will infect in about 2 weeks. Well, the spread rate we know is about 1.25. So on day 2, there's that many people infected. And after 2 weeks, you're looking at about having infected 20 people. So realistically, this needs to be 20 times this, which is about 1 million people, 800,000. So the suggestion is that there are probably 800,000 people infected already. And it's almost the best case scenario at the moment is the virus is far more widespread than anyone actually knows, and it's far less deadly than anyone actually knows at the moment. But you don't know that until you actually get that data. And you're just given the sheer number of people's lives that you're talking about here, it makes sense to take the quarantine seriously until you have a sensible idea of how many people are infected and what the actual mortality of the virus is. So that's one more analysis of the coronavirus, particularly of the coronavirus in America. Um, and if just so you know, if these numbers are more accurate, just taking the working out the number of infected from the death toll, then it's not that there's 100,000 cases in America at the moment. There's a million. Um, yeah, it's not there's 100,000. There's a million. So basically, you add a zero to all of these numbers, which means now you're talking best case scenario, you're infecting 4 million people, and worst case scenario is when this one is zero, you would be looking at 20 million in 2 weeks' time. So, yeah, worth taking quarantine seriously. I wish you good luck. Stay safe. And all these videos get demonetized. I don't care about that. If you want to support this channel, you can do it through Patreon. That would be very nice, in this difficult time. But other than that, good luck, and I'll see you next time.